Hello, and welcome to another episode of Big Moves, Bigger Conversations. I literally ran home to do this episode because I too am often in disbelief when crazy things happen to me. And I wanted to get out of the habit of doing my little story times on Instagram and posted it here to drive my YouTube traffic. And so I say all that. So I gave a little teaser and said, "Oh, I'm going home and recording." Well, here's the recording. So today is Blackout Friday, so I did not go get my usual matcha. Um, Instead, I opted for a Pepsi, which I never drink soda, but here we are. I needed a bit of a little pick me up. It's the afternoon and it's like that awkward time, but I was like, let me get this recording done and post it today. Like, guys, the hardest thing in life in general is consistency, and I've deemed I want to get X number of episodes out, and so I made that commitment to myself. I haven't shared what that number is or what my metrics are that I'm tracking against, but I'm looking to get it done, and so I'm doing things even when I don't feel like it, and here we are. So on today's episode, I ventured out, and you know how everyone is telling you, do it scared, do it when you're not comfortable, like just do it. Well, I'm here to add another layer to just doing it. Yes, you should just do it, but please, people, do your research. And your girl failed to do her research, and the story that I'm about to share with you is a big red flag. And I joked and said, I could have been in a very questionable situation. But so let me get into it. So essentially, I was on LinkedIn, and in my job search, I am pivoting to sales role. And one of the things that I've really been leaning into through my discovery phase is trying to figure out, what do I like, what do I not like, what do I not like, or what do I not want to do. And a lot of that I'm learning through informational interviews. And so I literally challenged myself to do one event that puts me out into the market a week. And so this week I was on LinkedIn scrolling, and an opportunity came up for an in-person event, and it was called Sales Job Connect. I was like, oh, this is perfect. And when you clicked on it, it asked for an updated resume and you could register. Well, for whatever reason this week, I was being so lazy and I never got down to register. But I said, even if I don't register, like, I'm going to go. Because, if you go to any kind of networking event, or if you ever been to like any kind of huge recruiting event, there's always opportunity to like sneak in. So I wasn't really worried about that part. So needless to say, I hadn't registered, but I got up this morning. The event was supposed to be from 10:30 to 1 o'clock. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. And so got up, got dressed, took a couple of phone calls, looked uber cute, did my makeup, hair, like, you see the look, this is the look. And I even put a heel on. And I was like, okay, girl, you look the part. Now, I was a little self-conscious about the length of my skirt. I am not getting taller, but something is happening where I feel like my skirt just, so I say all that to say I was a little self-conscious about my skirt, but I put a blazer on it. The skirt was longer than the blazer, so that always feels like a win to me. So I make it to the event, and I see people. The event was like 20 or so minutes away. When I get there, I realize people are in business professional. Now, business professional post-COVID, a little bit fluctuates. I feel like I looked more business casual, and I was like, okay, whatever. I went back and looked at the invite, which did say business professional, whatever. But then the second part of that was you have to have your resume on hand to give to the various recruiters. Fine. I was like, Sasha, you're not prepared. Not only do you not look the part, but now you're not prepared. You can't be both. And so I ended up Googling a library in the area, went to the local library, printed out copies of updated and printed 10 copies of my resume, because it's one thing not to look the part, but it's another thing not even to have like a resume on hand, so that you don't seem like, girl, did you just walk off the street and come in here? And so I printed, got back to the event. It was probably like 11:30. I had a hard stop because I had a wax appointment at 1 o'clock, and I wasn't really sure the distance, but I was like, I'm not missing my 1 o'clock because they'll charge me. So I definitely didn't want to miss that. So I get back to the place. It's probably like 11:30-ish. I go in, and there was already a couple red flags, right? Number one red flag is it wasn't a lot of foot traffic. Second red flag is we were at a hotel, but we weren't in the hotel conference area. Like usually when you go to, I didn't mind that it was like the Crown Embassy Suites. So to me, the assumption is, oh, okay, we're going to use like one of their larger conference spaces. When I go in and ask them like, oh, where am I going? And they were like, oh, over there. Now they had signage, so I was like, oh, okay. But the fact that we were in like a conference room, red flag. So anyway, I walk up to the guy. He does a little intro, and he tells me like, oh, you know, fill out this paper, and then Kim will give you this intro once you finish. Well, the paper that I was filling out was kind of like, I also got like another indicator, red flag number 2, that these were likely going to be entry-level positions that they were going to be on-site interviewing for, because that was like a part of the promotion. And because it was asking like a high school diploma, and I'm like, girl, this is not really my realm, but I'm going to use that as a networking opportunity. So I fill out the paper, and then this lady comes over, Kim, and she does her intro. She's like, I'm going to give you a tour. And I was like, oh, okay. So she takes me upstairs in the elevator. And when we get to the elevator, she stops in the hallway. And she starts giving me this spiel about, like, you know, what the Sales Job Connect is all about. And I'm thinking, okay, girl, just walk me into, like, the conference area. Walk me into, like, where everything is. I don't need this. Like, and she was like, I'm just going to go through a couple of the companies that are here. So I listen, and one of the companies that she mentioned, she goes, so, you know, as you guys are thinking about sales, we have some unique opportunities here. One of which is they're in the funeral business. And she was like, one thing that you don't have to worry about when it comes to the funeral business is we already know it's COVID proof. I said, excuse me. She was like, and I'm thinking, that is very morbid. I'm not working for no damn funeral company. So fast forward, I walk towards the companies. Y'all, it's 2 companies. It's 2 on-site companies. And like the first company, they have 2 greeters, and then the manager or most senior person is in the room. The room is it's a hotel room. I'm on like the 15th floor. I'm walking into a hotel room to interview. Now that don't sound crazy, but I mean their setup was cute because again it had the signage. The 2 girls at the 2 girls at the door, and they were super friendly. And actually, as I was walking up, the girl was like, "Okay, is this Sasha? Is this Sasha Fierce?" Which I always giggle at. Shout out to Beyonce. I feel like it's naturally people say Sasha Fierce all the time, but I definitely also had a strut, so she saw it. She also seen the bust down. But so we do a little intro, and then I sit down and I start the interview process. The individual who was talking to me, she was super helpful, provided insight about the company, but she was like, so what do you know? And I was like, I don't know anything. In the job on the Sales Job Connect page, they didn't actually list out the companies that would be here. So unfortunately, I don't know any history. I wasn't able to do like my own research. And she was like, oh no, that's not a big deal. Like I've been hearing that. And I'm thinking, what is this supposed to be? So we connect on opportunities that she has, again, way more entry-level positions. And so I kind of pivot from learning more about the company and learning more about her. And the information that she shared was really insightful. She had been in sales for, 19 years, different aspects of sales. She was actually in medical device sales, which is something that a lot of people have been throwing out for me to get into. But she actually reiterated some of my concerns, which is, when you're doing that stuff, you're usually doing you're dealing with people who have ailments, and I don't necessarily want to function in an environment or be working in an environment where it's about sick people. I mean, when I was doing my internships back in school, my sister had connected me, and I did an internship at Eli Lilly Pharmaceutical Sales, where my internship was focused on type 2 diabetes, and just the whole, I don't know, it wasn't something that I actually liked or felt comfortable really, because when I would talk to the doctors, like read over my little spiel, the doctors were kind of really clear, like most of their patients, at least this is for type 2 diabetes, he was like, it was one particular doctor that kind of stands out as I think back to my experience. He was always like, if these people just stop eating, he was like, the pharmaceutical companies will continue to push medication and people will continue to take medication. But in reality, it goes back to their diet. If they just control their diet, they wouldn't need to be on this medication. And by the time you get to dialysis, there's no turning back. And he said it so plainly, and he seemed extremely disconnected because, of course, he's dealing with patients all day that just are unwilling to change their eating habits. And it's to the point where some of them were dealing with like possible conversations around amputations, or for the folks that were like, or constant like needles or like whatever. And I was just like, this is so like, there was actually nothing, I didn't get excited about having the conversation because the doctors were already coming from a stance of like, okay, I know the medication is out there. I'm giving it to my patients because I know they don't want to do anything else, right? They've opted for the easier route rather than doing the work of challenging themselves to change their diet. And so that internship, which was really only 2.5 months, left a very poor taste in my mouth that I don't necessarily want to go back into pharmaceutical or medical sales. So I've already scratched that off the list. But one of the companies there was supposed to be pharmaceutical and medical device sales. What I end up learning is those folks, it was pharmaceutical, medical sales, and industrial sales. Those opportunities that I would have likely, sort of interviewed for, they weren't on site. She was going to vet and then send resumes that fit a specific criteria. But even that, it was like, if you've already had outside sales experience, and if you had like BDR, SDR, business development resource, or sales development resource sales, or something like that, either way, didn't fit my background, and I wasn't really interested in like going through another step. So anyway, getting back to the story, I ended up talking to the lady, learning more about her career. She shared that she's always been a sales type person. She's really been driven to get to the money. And like, if you understand, like, yes, the opportunity to connect with different people, but like, what are your drivers? And that really got me thinking, like, outside of making money, what do I like about sales, right? Is it that I like that it just comes easy to me? The fact that I get to network and meet tons of different people. Like, what is it about sales that's really going to keep me going? Another thing that she helped me understand is that I'm not really trying to start, like, I'm not really a hustler. Like, I don't have a desire to be like, because she did tell a story, and she was very like, again, this was extremely helpful. She told a story around like how, she's like, if me and you are sitting next to each other and we both doing the same job, I'm always going to go above and beyond. Well, that's not me. And I knew right there, I want made to be out in the field. I want a sales role where the leads are already there. It's an established company. They expect us to be there. It's not me popping up and saying, hey, can I get 15 minutes? No, I know I don't. That is not my ministry. So after I connected with her, and like I said, we had a really good conversation. I'm actually going to link with her on LinkedIn. I then go to the second company. By the time I came up there, I kind of held up the line a little bit. So it was like 5 or 6 people waiting. And then the next group, they were doing it in a group setting versus waiting for each individual. So the main guy, he says, hi, you can go in the room. Again, another hotel room. When I get in there, it's another older gentleman. The gentleman is probably like in his late 50s, early 60s. And he was sitting there and he was like, I came in and I introduced myself. I said, hi, I'm Sasha. Nice to meet you. And he introduced himself and he was like, yeah, here you go. And he gives me a folder. And he was like, I'm a little older than this. He was like, I'm a little too old for this. I'd have been around the block a couple times. I said, oh, okay. Again, not really. It's not like they said, go in this room and this is I didn't know who I was really talking to. So that's why I introduced myself. But he ended up being another candidate. And then he ended up saying, like, I'm not staying for this aspect of it. I know that they're not looking for someone with my... since I'm a more seasoned professional. So anyway, he ends up leaving. I'm on the phone. It's getting closer to 12 o'clock, so I am kind of getting a little antsy around my appointment. And so he leaves, two other gentlemen come in, and we all sit down, and the guy starts his spiel. Y'all, I ended up talking to these people, and for, again, a sales opportunity, this ended up being a cemetery company, where they were trying to rebrand or become a disruptor in the market to do to not only provide a plot but also do the funeral service arrangement. And they wanted individuals to come in as sales representatives. They were building out the team to start to get folks out into the market, right? To start talking about planning. And I thought, Phaedra Parks, y'all are really trying to convince me to be Phaedra Parks. But I took that and I sat through the information, but I was so like taken back. So essentially, a younger couple has recently purchased this couple of cemeteries in the Atlanta area, and this other guy who I really didn't get his name. I'm actually going to go back and look, because the guy that was talking, he's actually really he's a part of he's pretty influential here in Atlanta, you know, and he had the stature of like someone who, you know, has been in the industry, and I thought he was like, I would love to connect with him. Not so much, you know, doing the role, but again, an opportunity to just kind of pick his brain, because he seemed really established. And he said, you know, I did corporate America for 10 years and then, or excuse me, for 15 years, and then he had switched over. So they're giving us the spiel on like the cemetery and like why this is a growing business and why it's kind of interesting to do it with a family-owned business, and how the fact that these folks were like young, you would have an opportunity to kind of get involved at the beginning stages. And so I did, now I ain't gonna hold y'all, I did think it was interesting. I thought it was interesting that it was, number one, something that I never thought about. Number two, it did seem like it was plenty of opportunity. Like during the pitch, he basically said like, we need more, you need to family plan, and not enough people are family planning. And he actually said, do you know anyone in your family who did planning, right? It's two things certain in life, and one of those things are death. And so what are you doing in preparation? And like the other guy noted, he's like, I have life insurance, but he's like, yeah, but do you have your plot? Do you have your funeral arrangements? Like, have you purchased, or are you making payments toward that stuff? And honestly, it's not something that's been top of mind for me, because again, I'm in my 30s and it's not something you think about. But when I go back to my grandmother, and like, my grandmother had everything planned out. Like she had, I mean, that's a whole nother episode, how she had it planned out, but they didn't follow it. But at a minimum, she had her plot and her casket, and actually my grandmother did not have her casket. I think she only had her plot. But the guy was basically saying like older generations, they did that, or they were more conscious of that because of the amount, because of the cost, and not having like the ability to just leverage insurance or these GoFundMes and stuff. So it is something definitely that I am going to put more thought into and actually purchase, because I mean, I would like to know that like I'm not leaving behind a burden, and since I don't have children, I don't want it to be like a catch, you know, like who's going to bury her, you know, they're going to leave my body with the state. Like I don't want that to be the thing. And so I do think I'm going to look into it. But again, this guy was a little bit, I mean, for me anyway, he was extremely persuasive when it came to pre-planning your cemetery services. But I shared with him at the thing, he was like, so is it something you, and he kept looking over at me, and I know you looking at me because out of these three candidates, I'm the only viable one. I am not interested. It was a younger guy in the room, because so the guy ended up asking, he's like, so, you know, no pressure, but are you interested? And I said, you know, it's a little bit too morbid for me, not something that I had considered. Extremely interesting, but not a path that I'm going down at this time. And he said, you know, I remember sitting in this exact spot thinking the same thing, but like, be open. And I said, this is as open as I'm going to get. But there was another young man in the room who said he would do it. But again, he's 3 years out of school, so he's just trying things at this point. But I did think I thought it was extremely interesting. And that was my day. I thought, again, I didn't think I was really excited about the opportunity to actually network across. Did I take advantage of the opportunity? Absolutely. ask my questions. I'm normalizing, starting to have like I think what I got from it today, at least for me, is just getting out there and having those conversations. Before I went in, it was sort of like, okay, get amped up, get back comfortable networking and talking to people. This was just a reminder, there are no shortcuts. So I was really hopeful sort of the last 2 weeks when I seen the initial flyer for it, that this would be like, oh, I'm gonna go here and make some face-to-face connections and like get in with some companies. But in reality, I have to do the work, and the work is reaching out, utilizing LinkedIn, connecting with people for these informal meetings or informal interviews, and getting into work. Like, I want a job by May, and the only way that's going to happen is if I buckle down these next couple of months and actually do the work. Right now I'm coasting. And so this is my pledge. This is myself. This is you guys helping me to keep myself accountable and saying, girl, get to work. Until the next episode, love you as always, and talk soon.